Hey guys, I wanted to share this study with you, uh, partly because it was very interesting, but more importantly, it actually had a lot of, I think, essential pawn endgame knowledge that you should know. And what I recommend you do is pause this video and give yourself 15 minutes or so and see if you could come up with the solution. And I would recommend that you write that down. I had a conversation with one of my friends online, and he asked me whether I wrote down the whole solution. I said, I try to. I don't always get it right, but it helps. So, with that in mind, go ahead and pause the video and then check out the solution. Okay, let's take a look at this together. And I'm going to kind of gear my discussion more towards beginners because I think this is a very good study, not for just intermediate and advanced players to solve, but also for beginners to understand all the concepts for. Okay, so with that in mind, the first thing I would suggest we do is look at how are we going to fulfill the objectives here. And of course, it is white to play and draw here. So the main ways to try to get a draw in this position are to either trade off all of the pawns, which would of course be an automatic draw right there. Another way would be to find a way to get stalemated, and then the other way would be to come up with a one of the known drawing positions, and which would eventually lead to stalemate as well. But with that in mind, our general principles in the end game are we want to approach the action. So just before we do that, I just wanted to show you that advancing this pawn doesn't work. Of course, the idea there being if b takes a6, this is actually a draw already. Okay, so let me show you how. Here, and let's say the king keeps moving forward, and then we head to the drawing square. And here, if we can get to one of these two squares, then black cannot force us away, and this would eventually become a stalemate. Let me just show you an example. Here we just move back and forth, and then no matter what, we are going to be stalemated. Of course, if black moves the king away, we can take this pawn. But otherwise, if he moves anywhere else, for example, over here, then it is a stalemate. Okay, so we need to follow a different path, which would be to approach the pawns. Okay, so we have king to d2 and king to c7. Now, of course, we can also advance this pawn, but the first concept here is the square of the pawn. And once we are in this square, then we know we can catch it. So this pawn is going to be lost. I'll just demonstrate that real quick. So a2, and the king moves here. Okay, now with that in mind, let's say white gives up on that pawn, and he approaches our pawn. Now here, we actually aren't going to be able to save the pawn. So the question is, what do we do? One choice might be to allow him to take the pawn, but then take the opposition. Okay, for example, king to b3, king takes a5, and here the problem is that if we try to take the opposition, and the king goes back to b5, we take the opposition, trying to keep this king from getting past us. Now he has what they call a reserve move. He has a move where he can take the tempo, and that forces me to move to either side. Let's say I go this way, and then black can outflank me. And from here, I'm just going to kind of go through it quickly. Black can advance this pawn, and eventually we'll be able to vote as I'll show you right here. Okay, and I know I played through that, but I just wanted to make sure that it was not obvious to everybody. So going back to this position, instead of king to b3, go instead of right here, instead of allowing our opponent to take the pawn, we can actually advance the pawn. Okay? And two things happen. One of two things can happen. Of course, black can't advance this, otherwise we are going to promote first, and then white will be winning. And if he takes it, we go back to the fact that this is now a drawn endgame because we can reach these two squares, the A1 and the B1 squares. Okay. Oh, lost my spot. One moment. So here, the king has to take. And this is a subtle difference from the line that I just showed you. Because now when we take the opposition, let's say he goes to B6, when I take the opposition again, he can no longer use that reserve move. Now let's say he tries to move the pawn to B5. It actually doesn't matter where he moves it to B5 or B6. Then again in front of the pawn, and now this is another well-known, for some of you, well-known drawing method. The king stays in front of the pawn, and if king to B6, we just stay in front of the pawn. If the king tries to move to either side, we take the opposition, and so here he's forced to advance. I just get back in front of the pawn. And again, let me just demonstrate quickly. Keep backing up. Let's say he tries to go to this side, take the opposition, and you keep advancing the pawn. And eventually we get to this position, and it is a stalemate. So that method is also a draw. Now let's go back to the beginning position and look at what we would call the main line of this. So we want to approach the pawn. We saw that black advancing the A pawn doesn't work. And here, this would be sort of the key position. And this is actually the main line of the study. And now A3 is black's best chance to try to get a victory. Pushes A3, of course we have to take it. And now that clears the B5 square for the black king. And here, you guys should already know what happens next. If we, of course, just allow him to take it, then this is actually a win for black, as we discussed. And the key knowledge here, that when we take the opposition here, we have to look at this line. If we are on this line, on the 4th rank or greater, then it's going to be a draw, because when we take the opposition, he's not going to be able to use that reserve move to take the opposition back from us. But because we're below it in this position, then it is a loss. We're going back. So in this particular position, once again, we have to advance A6, and after the black king captures, king to A4 again leads to a draw. So that is the solution. And just to go from the beginning real quick, from this position, hopefully you got this answer down when you wrote it down. King to D2, king to C7, king to C3, king to C6, king to B4, and here black has to play A3. That's black's best move, otherwise it's very easy to draw. King takes A3, king to B5, and the other key move here is A6. After king takes A6, king to A4 with our now well-known drawing position. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I found this study to be not too difficult, but I think very essential in terms of the concepts that you had to understand in order to get the solution. So that's why I wanted to spend a little more time on the basics today. The PGN file will be on the Patreon page for patrons, and you could study that. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys are all staying safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.